Welcome to 561 Music. My name's Ben, and so today Hector couldn't make it because he is absolutely swamped with. He not only is he a musician, he's also an artist, and he's got all these commissions that have just come in. So we'll definitely have him back next week. But Hector is taking a well-deserved day off so that he can sort all of his stuff out.
Not much a day off. He's like working.
Yeah, it's true.
Working a lot too.
Yeah, a day on. Anyway, the guest we have today is our very own Justin Hucker. How's it going, Justin?
Going well, thanks.
Cool.
Thanks.
Yeah, I thought it'd be fun to do one where we talk to you because you're sat there behind the boards and listening to us all going on with ourselves, and you don't very often get a chance to express yourself on here, and you're as much a part of doing this podcast as any of us, really. So
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. So we do it out of here, which is LMC, live music community down here in Palm Beach Gardens, and you know, the idea, really, even down to the idea, you've been involved in it. So you know, but without any one of us three, it wouldn't have happened. So it's cool.
Thanks, man. I
cool
appreciate
to have
that.
you on, man.
That's good having you here.
So yeah, I'm really happy to be here. I had no qualms about that last job, but I have to say working here is great. I look forward to coming to work now, which is really nice.
That's great to hear.
So let's have a little bit of a chat about your musicianship and your musical journey.
Sure.
Why did you start playing music, and what was the kind of situation surrounding your early musical development?
I think I first started getting into music because my grandmother.
Right.
She used to sit at a piano and just play Sesame Street songs, and it was just the best thing in the world for me. It was a great way that we bonded, and yeah, it got me kind of started on that path. Although I didn't really gravitate towards piano. I just kind of enjoyed listening to her play.
Right.
And then I started playing trumpet and cornet when I was in junior high school, and then moved on to French horn, which is a hell of a fun instrument to play.
Sure.
And then
really, you know what? I just said
Yeah.
sure out of like a kind of knee-jerk response, but it is a fun instrument to play.
It is so much fun. It's really, it's way more difficult than people give it credit for, because it's like 3 triggers and you go, oh, it's just like
Yeah.
trumpet or whatever. And trumpet's not easy either by any means, but the mouthpiece is significantly smaller.
That's what I thought. I figured
yeah.
it'd be really hard.
Yeah, you end up doing this,
Yeah.
like you make this the tiniest. It's so hard making that small of a thing with your mouth.
Yeah.
But then also your hand plays a huge part in the the tone of it. So as you're holding the French horn, you put your hand in the bell and then you curve it and cup it to get different varieties of tone.
Right. Yeah.
So that's
timbres.
fun. And then I was also in marching band, and usually they have a French horn that gets modified to kind of just be like a giant trumpet, and then that's what you use. But they
Right.
didn't have that at my school, so I had to march with this French horn while trying to like hold it up and cup. It's not meant to be like held up and walked around, and then
Oh,
on top
wow.
of it you have to hold straight up.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a huge pain in the butt, but it was a lot of fun to play. And I think why I chose it was Metallica had put out the Black Album,
Oh.
and the very first thing that you hear in the Unforgiven is actually a French horn.
Okay.
And I was like, if it's good enough for Metallica, it's good enough
Yeah,
for me.
absolutely.
So I got all into it. Yeah.
I love the smooth tone of it.
Absolutely.
I always thought it was interesting that there's such a thing as a French horn and also such a thing as a cor anglais. So,
Cor anglais.
do you know what that is?
I have no idea.
They're like a cross between an oboe and what's that really big? It's like a cross between an oboe and a bassoon.
Oh, bassoon. Okay.
Yeah, it's like
all
right in between oboe and bassoon. It's like this.
Huh.
It's like a small.
Okay.
It's like a small, elegant bassoon or a massive oboe, basically.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So like right in between the two. So it's technically a woodwind then.
Yeah, and it is. Yeah, and it sounds very. It's really nice. I think it's a cor anglais in Peter and the Wolf. You know that?
Okay. Yeah.
That's cor anglais. They sound really nice. Like very melismatic and kind of this lovely sort of warm tone. But yeah, for some reason the French have an English horn and the English-speaking world have a French horn.
Go figure.
And the thing that I think is quite funny is that in France they don't call the French horn the horn. And in England, we don't call the English hornhole. They just are what they are at this point.
Yeah. It's all politics. Oh, yeah. After playing French horn and everything for a while, my sister, when I was 15, I think, gave me my first guitar. And it was just kind of a gift. And she showed me how to play a power chord and said, this is totally movable, so you can play anything you want now.
Your sister sounds cool.
Oh, she was awesome. I give her a lot of credit for putting up with me and for getting me into music because she was 6 years older than me.
Yeah.
So she was listening to like Alice in Chains and Nirvana and all that stuff that I ended up really loving. And I just steal all her albums.
That's
awesome.
awesome.
And just listen. She'd come in and smack me over the face. Give me my albums back. And then I started doing it with her instruments. And she also played drums a little bit. So before you knew it, like I had her whole drum set just set up in my room. And she'd come home and, I spent like an hour setting this thing up. And then she'd come home and disassemble it and put it back in her room. And we just kind of fight a little.
That's neat that you had a family member who was also a kind of a band kind of nerd too.
Yeah, she was into music, but she didn't really do anything with it. She ended up being an artist, she's fantastic at it. She's a 3D artist, which is amazing. She does basically creates games and stuff like that for phones.
Really?
So, yeah, but she has her sights on doing way more, and I hope she gets a chance to.
It just when you were talking about brass before reminded me of this. It's a silly story, but I'm just going to tell. So when my wife was first picking out instruments when she was like a kid, like a young kid, her mum said to her to play an instrument that's so big that she couldn't carry it home because she didn't want her to practice. So she ended up with the tuba, and they did make her take it home. So my wife Christy had to go to and from school, which is really far, and walk all the way to the bus with this giant tuba every single day.
I knew a couple kids that had to go through that, and I was glad I wasn't one of them. The French horn has this really weird one where because it's the same shape as the instrument, so it just has like this giant bell that sticks out, and that's in the case as well, so it doesn't fit anywhere.
Yeah,
and it kind of like the tuba is like definitely the most cumbersome, and I've seen ones with like wheels and like a rope over it that they're just like dragging.
It's always a tiny kid.
Yeah, this poor little kid. And then you see him play, and his cheeks are all poofing out. Yeah, it's a cool instrument. I definitely really respect anybody that plays the tuba because it's a difficult instrument on top of everything else that goes along with it. So.
Yeah, you remember like when gypsy punk was kind of blowing up and like 10 years ago when it was like kind of this big thing. All of a sudden there were all these kind of Romany influenced kind of indie bands and punk bands that were just popping up all over the place. We found ourselves playing with bands like that quite a lot with Killbillies, and they'd have a tuba or a sousaphone or one of those big ones as the bass.
Yeah,
I thought that was really cool.
Have you ever seen the Roots play live?
Not personally, but I've seen him on TV. Yeah,
their tuba player. He's got the wraparound marching style one. And man, last time I think it was at Sunfest a few years ago or whatever. But man, he came out and it was like I've never seen anybody with a tuba be that enthusiastic and crazy, and like he was marching around, he was jumping up and down, like he was putting on like a really, really good show.
That's awesome.
Which you don't normally see with the tuba. Normally it's a lot of like, I have to hold this thing. Like you want me to play and put on a show? Like give me a minute.
I really respect people with good stage presence, and for me with Sonic Boom 6 it was a big part of it. But since Killbillies and being basically tied down to this drum I have to play with my feet, it's kind of changed the whole dynamic of the stage show. It's like kind of a shame in a way. For a little bit we did get a drummer kind of for that reason, so we could move around. I mean, but then I don't know, I just feel like something was lost in the music when we got a drummer. I don't know.
You had Tyler Kulik and
Tyler
Alex
Kulik.
Mandel occasionally too, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it was big up guys.
Yep.
And it was it was cool in its own way, but I think somehow a part of the soul of Killbillies is in the feet drums.
Absolutely. I was just gonna say it's just not the same thing.
Yeah.
Like you guys are fantastic, and that's like one of your key points. Is like you got to see this band. They don't have a drummer, but there is drums all over the place. Like it's really it's. And I don't know, it kind of ties you to the song, I think, a little bit more,
it makes us tight in a really weird way. Like we speed up and slow down at the same speed because we're kind of attached to the drums.
Yeah.
So even though we're not always playing the same speed, we're all playing together.
Yep.
So yeah,
I think it makes you guys extra tight too. I agree with that.
Yeah. So talking of stage presence, that's something that I've always admired with you. Like and I know that it's something that you definitely kind of are aware of. You know?
Absolutely.
Like where did that start, and how long have you? Can you give us a little bit of a band history of just what bands you've been in and kind of how you approached them and stuff?
Yeah. So one of the earliest bands that I was in, I was really one of those kids. I grew up in Pryor, Oklahoma, and there's just not a lot of musicians there.
Yeah.
And there wasn't even a music store there. There was nowhere to buy an instrument for a long time when I was growing up. And then, like, if you needed guitar strings, like, you had to go to this place called Sandusky's, and it was just like this little corner shop. And if they weren't open, you didn't get guitar strings. And if they were out of strings, you just don't play guitar for a while.
Yeah.
So I got really good at just kind of like figuring out ways around things. And just became a little bit of a MacGyver that way.
I can relate to that.
My first few bands were really like me kind of sitting around with a buddy or something being like, wouldn't it be cool if we had a band? What would we call it? And then we'd come up with a band name, and then you know, we'd design things and we'd plan it all out, and then we'd just never be able to do it because it's just so. Yeah, so my first couple bands were very they were heavier, kind of more in the vein of like Marilyn Manson and that kind of stuff. That was that was big back then. Yeah. Riff oriented,
that kind of new metal kind of
approach. And we were into things like Korn and stuff were coming out and being big at that time. So
when Korn first came out, when they were basically skaters, like before they went really makeup-y, like that, I was really into them. Like
me too. That first album changed my life. It completely changed my life. I remember I heard the song "Daddy," which is a brutally honest song. And the first time I heard it, I was on a school bus and I was coming home and I was just like in tears listening to that song.
Oh,
and I was like, man, like this changes everything. Like, I had no idea that you could be this like open and fragile in music. And that really changed a lot for me.
Them and Slipknot really hit a chord in the UK. I remember there was a period of time when if you looked in any direction, you'd see 10 kids in black Korn or Slipknot hoodies. It was like, it was a sea of
I've seen
kids.
Slipknot like 4 or 5 times now, and every single time, unbelievable show.
Like,
literally the best show you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Just because of their stage presence alone. And the music is really good and they're tight, but their stage presence is just unbeatable. It's 9 people freaking out like the entire time. So it's super fun to watch.
Imagine seeing them in a small club. It must be crazy.
Yeah. So they were actually, back to your question about stage presence. They were actually one of the first ones that really got me thinking, like, it's not enough to go up there and play your music. Like, the reason I saw them so many times is because I wanted to see what they would do next. Every single time was something amazing and something new. Yeah. So
it's like that band Daikaiju that Matt was talking about last week.
Yeah. They were just always pushing the envelope. And I watched and I saw them a few times with like Cold Chamber was great back then, and what was that other band? Dope, Orgy was around. Limp Bizkit was big, but I didn't particularly love them. But I did do a couple of their covers when I was growing up. So yeah, my first few bands were really just kind of like, we don't know what we're doing, let's figure it out. And then once we got on stage, it was more like, hey, we don't know what we're doing, so let's just go nuts and give people a show and give them something to watch more than anything else.
There's a band that I've forgotten the name of that I'm just trying to remember. New metal band. It was.
Are we playing on our phones? Hold on a second. Let me get mine out.
Deftones is what I was trying to remember.
Deftones, dude! How can you not mention Deftones?
I know exactly. I just felt bad that they didn't get a mention.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're going to mention Korn, you have to mention Deftones. Like, they were very, very influential for each other. Even it was really cool to watch them work together, and they would work in studio and stuff together too.
I remember one year when Sonic Boom 6 played at Reading and Leeds. We were playing really close to the time that Deftones were playing, and I got to sit at a table next to all the guys, and I was there for the same reason they were. It blew my mind that I was like on the bill with them. That's like I think for sure that's the most famous I've ever felt in my life.
I would say so. That must feel really good.
Yeah, that was awesome. But you know, obviously, I think they were playing about 3 or 4 hours later than us. So you know, but we were still on the same stage as them and everything. You know, and by that point, they were all real big guys. They were in like you know in the sort of basketball gear and everything, and we were all these kind of
really early.
Yeah, we were in these you know these skinny sort of English guys, and you know they seemed like they were like 10 times the size. They seemed superhuman. You know?
Yeah. In Smells Like Grunge, the Nirvana tribute that I did for a while, we opened up a show that Misfits closed. Yeah. And it was like just one of the coolest things. I think you were even at that show. You might have been playing that show. I don't remember. But
I think No Name Scar Band was involved in that.
I think so. I think so. Yeah. So it was one of those things where it's just like, wait, we're going to open the show that the Misfits are going to close?
Super cool.
Like, unbelievable.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
And then they ended up getting rained out. Which I was like, well, at least we got to play. But, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like those kind of, it's funny, you know, because it's not really about, it's not the most important thing about it, really. Far from it, but it is nice to have those little brushes with fame every now and again. You know,
absolutely,
it's a good feeling.
It's cool to feel that you're on the same stage as somebody that you admire and someone that you look
exactly.
up to.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah, one of those kind of pinch yourself. You know, is this really happening? Kind of things. It must have been crazy, but you and your wife went around and met, like, you went to, what was going on with Kelsey's like thing where she was doing all of the where she went to all those gigs? What was that all about?
Well, my wife is a world record holder.
Right, that's
for the most shows gone to in 1 year.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is she's got the record for like 60 something, which isn't like unheard of.
Right.
But she actually went to well over 100. And the problem is you have to have the ticket stub.
All right, okay.
But when she was at these places, like she was meeting, like I think Taylor Swift was one of the ones that she didn't get to count because she didn't keep the stub. But she's got a picture of her and Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
And like, you know, emails, you know, talking about the events and how she got there. Like she's got every little detail except for the ticket stub. And they're like, nah, we can't count it. So she's got like 100 and something that was actually that she actually went to, and it included like, you know, local bands like Spread the Dubs on there, and I think Butch and the Fat Dudes is on that list. But you know, once again, they didn't have ticket stubs, so they didn't get counted. So it was kind of a bummer because like half of what she went to didn't get counted, but she still got the record. So
that's amazing.
So go ahead and try to beat her, and she'll do it again. But yeah, well, she was. While she was doing, go ahead.
Do they still do the print versions of the Guinness Book of Records? Did you?
Yeah. We got a plaque though. We just got like a little thing that we could hang up on the wall and just be like, she did that.
That's so awesome. An old friend of mine, her boyfriend was one of the checkers for Guinness Book of Records. Imagine how cool that job must be.
That must be awesome. Yeah. But it also must be kind of annoying because like how many people probably send in lies.
Yeah, true.
Like how many people fake things, and you know, and you gotta siphon through all the bullshit.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I suppose when you say it like that, it's just kind of like an admin job.
Yeah, but I mean, you get to see a lot of cool people doing a lot of crazy things, so it's got to have its ups and downs.
Working our way through your sort of band history, and we talked about the early stuff. When was your first kind of serious band? Would you say?
I'd say when I started writing solo. I started moving around. I grew up in Oklahoma, and then I went back and forth between Illinois and Oklahoma. Then I moved out to California and Montana and here Florida, and like I moved so many different places that it was like impossible for me to find bandmates because you know I never knew when I was going to leave. So I just started writing things myself. I started learning bass and started singing more, and I just started learning as many instruments as I could just to kind of like be able to do it myself. And I got really into MIDI, and I'd say that's when I really got serious about my own music.
Right.
And then the big problem was like I'm this guy who really loves to perform, and performance, you know, stage presence and performance is a really big deal to me.
Yeah.
And yet here I am having to play, you know, acoustic at a coffee shop or something, and like, I can't do anything. So it was really frustrating. And I went like that for years before I finally like before I finally started doing things with it. And
did you used to play along with like sort of beats and stuff that you made on the computer?
Yeah.
Was it like Nine Inch Nails style kind of thing?
Yeah. I did some of that kind of stuff. EDM before it was EDM, back when it was just techno.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I used to do stuff like that, and Trent Reznor was a huge influence on me for all that stuff.
Yeah.
And but no, I just got really into writing whatever the hell I felt like, and as it turns out, like a lot of the stuff that I was writing was really dark and just crazy and creepy sounding, and also had like this overly happy feeling at times. So it was just uncomfortable no matter what. No matter what I wrote, yeah, it was very uncomfortable. So it was either extremely sad, extremely happy, or just extremely extreme.
Right.
So, but I'd say like my first, my most successful first band was probably the Smells Like Grunge Nirvana tribute.
Right.
I think that was the first one that was like, this is serious. We need to take it seriously. We were getting good gigs. Lots of people were showing up. We were the first ones to sell out the Kelsey Theater.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that was a huge honor. And pretty much after that, they were just like, whenever you want to play here. And they were trying to get us to come back like every month. And I was like, this isn't going to work. If we do it every month, people just saw us. They're not going to want to see us again. Or if they do, it's just going to keep dwindling and everything. So I was like, we got to make it special and do it every few months or something like that. But yeah, that was the first one. And I took it extremely seriously. They were already established, and their singer, Nick, had moved away to, I think, New York or something like that. And then they were doing a show, and I was doing sound for them at Swampgrass Willie's. And I saw them, and I had just kind of like brushed by them. I was like, hey, you guys are really good. I really appreciate what you're doing. And I was like, I always kind of wanted to be in a Nirvana tribute. And then they, I guess, took that to heart. And then Hector, actually, where is Hector, by the way?
Hi, Hector.
Yeah, Hector called me up one day, and he was just like, hey, so, you still want to try? And I was like, hell yeah, like, let's do this. And then I ended up kind of being a bully about it.
Right.
Because I walked in, and I was like, yeah, we're not doing this right. We're not doing this right. And
wow.
Yeah, so I try not
really
to be
cleaned it up.
Yeah, I try not to be a dick about it, but at the same time, I was like, look, if I'm gonna get a wig and stand up there as a 6'3" tall guy and hunch down to 5'7" or whatever Kurt was, like, if I'm really gonna do that, like, you guys are gonna be just as good. Like, there's no reason not to.
Sure.
So I did push them. Won some battles, lost some other ones, but for the most part, like, we just kept on going, and it just got better and better, and we started playing to, I think hundreds, thousands of people getting paid really well. And it was just fun. Yeah, it was loads of fun.
It's so exciting playing to large crowds, isn't it? There's nothing like it. It's just the energy is just
it's unstoppable.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've got some of my favorite stories ever being a bander from that one. Like, we were flying one of my first gigs with them. They were like, hey, you got to learn 40 songs in like a month. And I was like, all right, here we go. So learn the 40 songs. And then they're like, hey, we're going to New York for our first gig. Yeah. I was like, so great. My first one with you guys, and I'm super uncomfortable, and I've got to fly a long distance, be jet lagged, and then go do a show at a place I've never been to. And like, it was just really uncomfortable. But at the same time, we played this place called Fontana's. It was a load of fun. But while we were on the plane right up there, our drummer, Jay, he looked a lot like Dave Grohl, like kind of a ridiculous amount like Dave Grohl. So when we were on the plane, me and Hector are giggling in the back, and he's sitting up front a little bit on his own. And so we started talking to each other. We're like, hey, let's play a prank on him. So we got the stewardess to come over, and we're like, hey, Dave Grohl is sitting right up there, and he's flying on this plane. So you guys should probably like thank him or something, for flying. So she went over to the intercom, and she was like, we just want to thank Dave Grohl of Nirvana. She said Nirvana for flying JetBlue. Thank you so much. And everybody starts looking around, and Jay gets up and starts looking around. He's like, Dave Grohl's? Oh, motherfuckers. And he just put his head down. And so we get off the plane. And we're all like, it's the three of us. We're all standing together waiting for our luggage and everything.
Yeah.
And the luggage starts coming around the carousel, and it's drums and stuff. So he looks like he looks like Dave Grohl. He's collecting drums from the carousel. And so people start going over and asking for autographs. And
then
stuff.
they're like, "You're not Dave Grohl."
No, they totally they were all going for it. Like, it was I'm sure anybody who knew was just like, duh, and then walked away. But there was like a handful, like 5 or 6, 7 people that were all coming up being like, "Oh yeah, we want your autograph." My daughter is going to be so excited for this.
That's so great. It just cracks me up that like Dave Grohl would be waiting for his own like drums. Like, as well.
That's the funniest part. It's like, come on, guys, this is obvious. So yeah,
that's awesome.
That was a really fun one.
So yeah, that's sadly no more. But you've got another project called Euphobia. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I actually left Smells Like Grunge to do this.
Oh, okay.
So I left a good paying gig to a no paying gig. But it's all originals. I wrote most of it myself, and then got a band together. I recorded really good demos for it.
Yeah.
So it was really easy when I went to start finding band members. It wasn't hard to show them like, this is my vision, because I already had it, and it was just like me singing terribly and kind of loose recorded tracks, but they were all there. Like, you could hear the idea.
Right.
So when so I think the first iteration of it was Hector on bass. I was playing guitar and singing, and then we got a guy named Ken to do the drums, and it just didn't end up working out.
Right.
And then I ended up we went through
I don't know
a few
if I
other
ever met
people.
Ken.
Ken Mullen, I think is his name.
Okay.
Sorry, Ken, if it's not. But he's a really good friend of Hector's, and I think it's actually somebody he's working with tonight. I think he's actually working with Ken.
Interesting.
So,
He's an artist?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep. He does all the 3D art and stuff with Hector,
cool.
too.
Okay. Is he one of the, don't they have like isn't it the Chalk Guys or something like that?
Chalk Guys.
Yeah, Chalk Guys.
Which,
that's it.
check them out, because they are unbelievable. Like, they do the most crazy 3D chalk art you've ever seen.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
So after a few iterations, I asked Brandon Lehman to come in and play drums. He was wanting to do something more along the lines of what I was doing. He wanted to do something that was like grunge and things like that.
Right.
And so I kind of turned him down on that, but said, what do you think about doing this original project? And he was all about it. He thought it was really fun. So he brought in Casey McKee, and Casey actually ended up passing away.
That's right.
About a year into it. Yeah, it was terrible. He was so good. Like, I could just walk in a room and just be like, all right, so here's my idea for a bass line, and then just mumble something, and then he'd be like, oh, like this, and then he'd just turn it into a masterpiece before my eyes. It was It's just one of those guys that's just like unbelievably talented.
Yeah.
And he just gave it his all, and eventually he passed away. And at that time, we had already gotten James Galliano on vocals, and then Hector actually ended up coming in and filling in for Casey.
We share 2 band members, don't we?
We did.
Yeah, James and Hector, which is so far it hasn't been a problem.
So far.
Long may that continue.
As long as we don't make it, you're good. You're good.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the good thing about it around here is, we're all friends. So if something comes up where we have to juggle things around, it's not impossible to sort out.
It's one of my favorite things about a lot of local musicians that I've worked with is everybody here is just so chill, and just they're not looking to screw you over. They're looking to help you. Yeah. And it seems like we've in our community, we've got a really good group of people.
I agree with that, and I found it to be, just so long as you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and like acting right, the resources to you in terms of people and people's time and attention and energies is vast. Yeah. You could really honestly do whatever you want down here. It's all just kind of on you. And something I realized quite a lot, it's like the only thing stopping me from, starting, I don't know, like a violins and tubas and we all dress as clowns project is the fact that
I want it.
The fact that I'm not doing it is just the fact that I haven't started to do it. There's I know enough people to do pretty much whatever I want to do down here, which is huge. It's amazing.
Yeah, I agree.
And I was visiting my parents in the country a few weeks ago, and had a really nice time. But it did remind me of the difference of in like just how many musicians there are here and availability of people and things.
Yeah.
I think that's twofold. One is the fact that we live in this kind of giant suburbia, and the population is actually pretty high, down here. There's a lot of people around. And also the fact that there's so many bars and restaurants that just need music. There's enough people who are doing music for a living to kind of support this sort of greater community of kind of bohemian community of musicians that just exists, which is quite rare. It's not like that where I grew up.
It's not like that where I grew up either. Prior, like I said, there was like no musicians, and the ones that were there were not into what I was into. So it was really tough. But yeah, like having supportive musicians around you, and then people who aren't musicians but they just support musicians. That's unbelievably great down here. Like we have a load of people that don't play but just simply love music, and they love live music.
And I think people, Florida gets made fun of because there's a lot of people who are retirees here. Mm-hmm. But the fact that there are some people here with kind of independent sources of income who are going out and doing things just for the sake of it, the fact that it is a little bit of a tourist spot and that people are spending a bit of money down here, it allows for that kind of extra tier of employment to exist. The service economy is strong here.
Very much.
Pretty much everyone works in it in some degree.
Yep.
Either a server or bar staff or an entertainer of some kind. There's a lot of us.
Yep. What I hate hearing, and I sadly I hear it fairly often, is there's no venues down here. Like, are you kidding? Like, there's venues everywhere. You just got to get in there.
I think some people can confuse the fact that there are a lot of cover bands with that there are no original bands. That's not true.
Oh, but there are. Yeah, there's plenty.
Yeah, yes, there are a lot of cover bands, but there's not only cover bands.
Yeah, absolutely.
And having a cover band isn't the worst way to make a living if you're also trying to pursue an original project.
No, in fact, the two work hand in hand extremely well. Like if you are an original band and you really want to get a bigger audience, then yes, do some covers and sprinkle in your originals, or maybe do a cover set to open up for yourself.
Exactly.
Like, there's definitely ways to do it.
And this might sound a little bit sort of a romantic notion, but just there's something about that idea of a working band who kind of like evolve into playing their own music that I really like. Yeah. I love that idea. It's quite an old-fashioned idea, and whether or not it's exactly what's happening, I'm not sure. But I like the idea.
Yeah, and that's how most of my students here. That's how they start. They start in a cover band, and I push them into that. Yeah, and then I wait for them to start going, hey, you know what? Be cool to write our own song. And then I'm like, that's what I've been waiting for. Let's do this. And then we start doing originals. We start recording and writing and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, almost every single band that I've ever taught or been in has started out with like, all right, what 8 covers are we going to start with?
Yeah, totally. I've been involved with working with some kids here, like who are writing songs in it. And that's something that I like about this Spot Live music community is that, we're getting them writing pretty young. Yeah. As soon as they want to do it, let them do it.
Yep.
There's no standing in the way of creativity, and I think that's really important. And I think that Florida as somewhere that is a kind of a creative hotbed is a reality, and I think that people should stop kind of doing themselves down around here. There is a lot going on. Yeah. There is a lot of people making music down here. There's plenty of places to record it if you want to as well.
Oh, absolutely.
I think it's just a question of getting on and doing it, quite honestly.
Yeah. And a matter of cost. I get that.
Yeah.
Like we purposely, since we're in music school, we're doing okay. We're gonna be fine. So since we have all this glorious equipment, we figured, let's open the doors and get some other local artists around here. And we've had some great acts come through. Yeah. The Elegant Harp was really cool. That was my first jazz band that I've ever recorded, and the first time I've ever recorded a harp. So that was like loads of fun. Yeah. And
I wish I was around
Glorious
that day.
Strays were really cool when they came through.
Yeah.
We recorded Killbillies. We do live streams every week, so we constantly get bands in here. Yeah. And we just try to keep it really, cost efficient for them and make sure that, they get a good product. So at the end of the day, they're not killing themselves,
Sure.
trying to afford what's essentially a rough demo, because a lot of times, like, even if you go and release it, like, it could very well get picked up, and then when it does, well, now you got to go into a studio and re-record it anyway. So if you're going to be releasing something that's potentially going to get recorded later anyway, then don't spend a ton of money on it. Just get good quality and then start shopping it around.
I think in a way something visual is not in a way, definitely something visual these days is crucial.
Absolutely.
You can't not have it, really. In fact, it's almost better to have the visual without the audio than the other way around.
Sadly, that's somewhat true. Oh man, it sucks because if they can't change the way you look, but they can change the way you sound.
I guess what I mean is that in terms of the social media kind of nature of today's kind of like music game, it's just, and you just need something that at least pops a bit. If you say to someone, "Oh, go and check out my song, it's on Spotify," they'll be like, "Yeah, okay," and they may do and they may not. But if you post a video of your song on social media, there's a much higher chance of people watching it.
Yeah,
they'll just watch it to pass the time, even if they. Even if they're not particularly interested in the music, and then you might catch them. They might go, "Oh, actually, I really like that." And they're not listening to it.
Video does seem to be, like this whole, the whole thing with the last couple of years now, the whole COVID adventure that we've been on, really did open up some doors that we weren't really looking in before. And, I hate to shed light on it, but it's the whole live streaming thing actually. It's kind of fun. It's kind of great. And you can really cheaply make a good promo video and use that to shop around to different venues that you don't think exist here in Florida, but they totally do. It's good for sharing. It's good to, if you're going to go on tour and you take this, you do a live stream, well, now you have a link that you can show them. And, say you're going to go to Colorado. Well, now you've got something that you can show a whole bunch of venues there and say, this is my band, this is what we do, we want to go on tour, we want to play your place. Now they can actually see you before you actually do anything. Yeah. And it's not some cruddy video that, you're way off in the distance and the audio is terrible. Like, they can actually get nice up and close and personal and know who they're dealing with, and they can see your whole performance, or they can see just a chunk. Like, it's really cool to have the video and audio so high quality now, and that wasn't a thing a couple of years ago, or if it was really expensive. And nowadays it's much cheaper and still very effective. So
some of the we did some recordings down at DC Studios years ago, 9 years ago, me and Micah Scott, and for the longest time, they were the best videos we had online, and that was essentially the same thing. It was like it was essentially a live stream, except we weren't streaming, but it was live takes with a camera in front of us. And we'd done loads of different recordings in between, but that is debatably some of the best stuff that was ever taken of Killbillies until just recently when we did another live stream, and now we have that, and I liked it so much that I ended up using the audio for the album. So I'm definitely a big proponent of all that.
Well, now that I've gotten better at it, I definitely want another stab at that.
We'll do it.
It was good and all, but man, like I've learned so much just in the past few months, even about live streaming and how all this stuff works. And I mean, I studied my ass off to learn about it, but at the same time, like it takes a while.
Sure.
Kind of work out all the kinks.
Exactly.
So one day we'll do it again.
Do you have a writing process when you're writing these Euphobia songs? What's the process?
It varies, but not by much. Typically, I start with the chord progression. Most of my songs, that's kind of where they stem from. I really like using the harmonic minor scale.
Yeah.
So. But I don't necessarily like to just flat out use it, in scale form. I like to look at what it does to the chords. So if I take that 7 and I raise it from a flat 7, then suddenly that minor chord that was on the third now becomes a major chord.
Yeah.
And so now I have 4 major chords to work with, which is interesting. And it makes, so it changes some of the chords that are in there. And then I really just love to work inside of that like weird space that I've now created with chords that you wouldn't normally hear together. So chords usually come first. If I can find a good chord progression that I can sink my teeth into, I go there, and then I start with rhythms, and then bass line comes next, and that's the most important thing to me.
Yeah.
I love writing bass lines. I love the puzzle that I create because I usually break key and I have all these, weird things going on, and then the bass line has to find a way to take all that and make it musical and tie it all together and make it work.
You should be able to tell a song like through someone's bedroom wall on the other side of the wall. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like the song should be encapsulated in the bass line, like
absolutely. And all of our bass lines are very energetic. They move a lot.
Yeah.
I feel bad for Hector at times because like I walk in and I'm like, I got this is a good one. Check this out. And then we go through it and he's like, this is going to take me a couple weeks. I'm like, I know, but go do it. But bass players, I mean, they're the Ringo Starr of musicians. They get a lot of shit, but they're really, really important.
They're the most important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really break it down, like a bass player juggles between being, with the drums and the guitar and sometimes even the vocal. Like that bass player is just knee deep in every single thing that's going on in the band. And then they get, joked about.
Well, it takes a certain type of person. So it takes someone who's comfortable with themselves to be a good bass player, because like it's not always the most glorious, but it is very important. And to have someone who's got a level head and can hear how to be the glue to hold the band together is it's an art form. Hector has that quality about him.
Absolutely, hands down.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the bass doesn't necessarily, like I use a lot of moving bass in mine, but like the bass doesn't necessarily have to be this big crazy thing in order to be important. Like you look at the Van Halen tune, Running with the Devil. Like that is literally just don, 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 doing the whole thing.
Yeah.
But then with everything working around it, it suddenly is just this foundation that's just without it, it's just like, what are you gonna do? If the bass line followed it and dun 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 dun, then it would just kind of like there's no guts to it.
Yeah,
like just this one. I think it's an A, just punch, quarter note, and that just like makes this whole thing work.
Yeah, totally.
So, yeah, bass players are extremely important, no matter how big or small of a part.
I can't remember. I think it was Dave Grohl who was talking about the way that he builds tunes up, and he builds them up. He builds them up as if it's like a
drum set. Yeah, I saw that.
You saw that?
Oh, I love that. Yeah. So he's like, your E string is your bass or is your kick drum.
And
like your high E and your B, those are like cymbals.
I
was like, dude, this is insane.
Yeah,
but it makes sense. So yeah, good for him.
It does make sense, and there's a lot of that kind of sensibility in Travis picking as well. It's basically what Travis picking is.
Yep.
He's kind of learnt Travis picking in reverse.
Yeah. He uses it differently, but yeah, it's the same concept.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, with the steady bass, and then the syncopation in the upper registers that gives it the interest. Yeah, for sure. So the next question for a music teacher is a rather personal one, and it's, do you practice?
I knew this one was coming. The answer, of course, is not as much as I should, but I also teach all day, so I'm always playing. I love to write. I typically write. I try to write something every day or every couple days or so. I sit on my couch, come up with a couple of riffs, and then just put them in the bank for when I feel like the need to write an album. So I definitely don't sit down and practice like I'm supposed to, but I sit down and write a lot, and I feel like that's just as good.
Yeah, totally. Well, what I'm really trying to practice at the moment is just running. I want to get my sweeps really solid, but that's just kind of like learning how to do a kickflip on a skateboard. That's just like
you just have to keep doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There's no shortcut for that one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm not a fast guitar player by any means. I will probably never learn sweeping. I get the concept, but I'm like,
Yeah.
Nah.
When I bought that Jackson that we were talking about earlier, that was kind of like, it's like, okay, I give myself permission to buy this guitar, but in return, I shall learn how to sweep.
And how many years ago was that?
It was like 9 months ago. It wasn't that long ago.
That's not bad.
And I have been practicing it, but I started
Absolutely,
practicing the sweeping a lot more. It has dwindled a little bit. I've got to kick myself up the butt with it, but
that's all right. If I honestly, and I preach this to all my students, is practice shouldn't be about time. It should be about goal.
Yeah.
So if I have a goal, if I have something that I'm like, man, I really suck at this, I need to work on this, then like you'll see me practicing my ass off.
Right, gotcha.
But if I don't have anything that I specifically need to work on, probably not going to practice that much.
Yeah.
It's so much about goal. Like if I know that I need to do something, I'll do it. But other than that, I just want to sit around and write weird songs.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
So this episode is sponsored by Handlebars, and Handlebars is a biker bar that's in Tequesta, which is a small town just north of Jupiter on US 1, right on the border of Palm Beach County, Martin County. And my father-in-law, Peter Pinello, wanted to reopen it because it's a local landmark and it's been a cool little biker spot for the longest time, for decades, and it had fallen into disrepair. Victor, the previous owner, had got to the point where he didn't want to, spend a lot of time and money and energy with the upkeep, so needed someone to carry the baton, basically. And my father-in-law decided to do that, and I've been helping him with booking the music and all this kind of stuff. But the place is really cool. It has great beer on tap. We have Bernsey in the kitchen making delicious food. Have Jamie behind the bar, and we have music on Saturday nights. Sort of afternoon, evenings from 5 to 8, except stay tuned on that because we might be changing it to 6 to 9. And we have music on Sunday afternoons, and we have music on the second Thursday of every month because that's our bike night. And so far, all of them have been great. They've been a lot of fun. So if you ride a motorbike, or even if you don't and you just want to come and check out the vibe, because it's certainly a very unique and fun one, come and check out Handlebars. We are looking forward to you showing up and ordering a beer and a burger. All right, so Justin, we've got a couple of things up there on the screen, and why don't you tell us a little bit about them?
Sure. Okay, so left to right, the pedal board. I've got a chorus pedal and then a delay pedal, both just typical Boss stuff. I love Boss. Next to that is, silly enough, this is a Euphoria pedal. And
I know, I saw that.
Everybody keeps joking like I need to change the R to a B, so it's Euphobia pedal. And somebody was like, "Did you buy that just because?" No, I didn't. I actually did a lot of research on it. It's one of these great pedals that just has crystal clear highs and is able to get a lot of grit.
Okay.
So I really enjoy it. And if you push that bass up a bit, you kind of get into fuzz territory a little bit, which is fun.
Oh, right.
So it's actually a really good pedal. It costs me a couple $100, and it's made by, I think, Warbler. That's the one. Next to that's typical Big Muff, but it's the small version, which I really don't like as much as the bigger Big Muff.
Yeah.
So it's like a smaller size, but it's all I could do to fit it in my pedal board.
The bigger the better, I say.
Yeah, it really, like with those pedals, if you've got like the old school big old fat one, like that's the one that's going to sound good.
Yeah.
Above that's just a noise suppression. And then
I used to have one of those, and they make chugs and like beat downs and breakdowns so much better, don't they?
Absolutely.
You get that jog, like So
and they're just good for for control. Like I if I push my distortions and everything way higher than they're supposed to go, it feeds back like mad crazy. So it's nice to have that to calm it down a little. What guitar do you use with all of this? So that up there is a Hello Kitty.
Is that the guitar that you use when you play live?
Yeah,
that's
that
cool.
One, and I actually just bought a second one that I had modified to include a theremin.
Yeah, that's right.
So I took that to Mike Papero, which is like the greatest luthier that we have around here. So definitely, if you got something that needs to be fixed, go to him. But yeah, we installed a theremin in it, and so now I just have this wacky little thing in there that I got to figure out how to write with.
Yeah. Well, that'd be fun. You just have the guys loop some grooves and just mess around over the top.
That's probably, I was thinking about that. Like, I'll probably just end up using it to build ambiance and stuff. I probably won't really go nuts with it live, but I'll definitely take it out and play around with it. But yeah, so this Hello Kitty guitar was a gift from my wife.
Oh, really?
God, 10, 12 years ago, something like that. And she got it for me kind of as a gag. Like, you know, it's a cheap guitar, so it was kind of funny just to give it to me. And I ended up really liking it. Like, it's a really good little guitar. It was
Does it come like that with the humbucker by the bridge there?
No, the humbucker that they have in there is kind of weak. So I got a Gibson 57 humbucker, put that in there. No problems.
Interesting. And do you have the noise suppressor in there because the guitar itself is noisy, or what's the guitar like?
No, it's more to kind of keep the feedback in check more than anything else. It's not too noisy. It's just a single volume, no tone control or anything. So it's pretty limited, but it's very much along the lines of like Jerry Cantrell's guitar, where he's just got that one humbucker and a volume knob, and that's all you get. And I was very much into that idea of simplicity is just always best for me. Every guitar that I've ever used anyway, I always just turn up all the controls, and then I do everything through my amp anyway, so whatever.
I always tell students that, and because a lot of kids want to control their guitar with their volume. Yeah. They're not aware that they're essentially just rolling off all the top end of the tone, all of the bite.
All their bite, just gone.
Yeah.
So, fun guitar, spent way too much on it. I've updated pretty much everything there is to update on there. I really need to take it in and get it like cleaned and just maintenanced and everything. But I don't know. Maybe I'll just do it myself one day.
I have a soft spot for kind of keeping the same piece of wood and just sort of like, how many times can you replace the head and the stick of mop before it's a different mop type thing, I'm all about that as well.
I love that theory. It's such a good,
Totally. That's I enjoy doing that with guitars too. I've got my Fender Telecaster from my days when I was playing with Sonic Boom 6 is it's pretty tore up, but I'm just going to take it to a luthier and get them to replace everything that needs replacing, and keep the old girl running, because there's soul in there.
Absolutely.
Like, I think there's just something about keeping that same guitar, like Trigger,
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Like, guitar's got personality to it. It's
absolutely.
If you change too much, eventually it's not the same thing.
And you see a lot of people, with these kind of distressed, like, guitars that you can buy, the pre-worn kind of guitars.
Yeah.
And I always think to myself, well, why don't you just use a guitar a lot, and then it'll just be
just
that.
Wear a belt buckle and go for it. Like, you'll tear the shit out of that thing.
It doesn't look good for the first 3 months when it's only got a couple of dings in it, but give it a couple of years, and like.
The funny thing is, I used to have a friend that bought, spent $1,500 or so on some Fender, and it was worn and everything, and then he put a ding in it, and he got upset.
I know.
I was like, dude, how are you gonna live through this? Like, this makes zero sense.
Yeah, it's like buying jeans with holes in the knees, which I do that, but it's kind of like that, it's silly, but sometimes they are beautiful though. You have to be very careful with them. You have to be very, every now and again you get a beautiful pre-worn guitar, and I don't want to hate on people who buy these kind of guitars, but the pre-distressed ones, but it's not my thing. All right then, so we're kind of winding up to the end here. I think I'm going to just say to everybody, we've got a great show next week. We've got Scott Gaylor, who is a local guitar guru. He just knows exactly what he's doing. He's an absolute master on that thing, and he's going to bring a whole load of pedals, and we're going to look through his pedals. And he is one of these people who just collects pedals like they're going out of style. He's got 1 million of them. And he also, you may have, I don't know if everyone who's listening to this heard the episode, but he came on and talked about, his life as a professional guitarist, and he demos pedals at NAMM, and he does all of this cool stuff. So, he's a perfect person to talk to us about pedals, because he really genuinely does know what he's talking about. and might even know the guy who built the pedal. I mean, it's still at that point of ridiculousness. So that's going to be a really, really fun episode. You should definitely tune in for that. And I think we're going to have Hector back for that one too, so that would be cool.
And I'll be back behind the curtain, so I won't be bothering you anymore.
Justin will be relegated back to the booth. But yeah, outside of that, we've got quite a busy week this weekend with Killbillies. We got we do have a gig on Thursday, but by the time you hear this, that will be over. So we're playing in Mulligan's in Stewart from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Friday, and then we're playing at Pirates Cove, but that's just me and James on Saturday from 7:30 to 10:30, and I think that's the extent of the Killbillies action this weekend. Yep, that's it. And if you want to come and check out some really cool old school classic Americana, Slip Mahoney from Slip and the Spinouts is playing at Handlebars from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. on August the 1st, and he has a really interesting set list. There's a lot of guys out there who'll just kind of, bang out the tunes that they think everyone wants to hear. But Slip has a really good taste in music, and he plays a lot of really interesting and classic Americana. So, that's something that you should come and check out. And so Euphobia's show is Saturday, August the 7th, and it is at Swampgrass Willie's, which is a real cool spot down in Palm Beach Gardens. If you've never been there, just going there itself is fun and an experience. They've got a gazillion posters from old gigs on the walls. They've got a really great stage, and they have food, and they've got a full bar, and it's a good time in there. And the best thing about it is that Euphobia, with support from Fall Victim and Butch and the Fat Dubes, they're all playing there on August 7th. And it starts at 8, and it's $5 on the door. So you guys should come and check that gig out. Yeah,
and
good luck.
I love that we're having Butch and the Fat Dubes, especially because that's, James is in that band too.
Yeah.
So he's got to, sing with Butch and the Fat Dubes, and then he's got a little break, and then, so he's going to have a long, fun night.
Yeah. So it sounds like as we were recording the podcast, James Galliano, the singer from Euphobia, got back to you and said that he can come, and you guys are going to perform a Euphobia song in the 561 Music Lounge. Is that right?
Yeah, so let's do things out of order a little bit. And,
yeah, totally.
And we'll do that. I was originally not going to be able to play a song because typically my stuff, it's James's voice, and without it, I just don't think it works as well.
Yeah.
So I was really happy James is going to run up here, and we'll do a couple songs for you.
Nice one. All right.
Cool.
See ya.
Let me tell you about the world out there. Plum cats and greasy pigs make quite a parasite. No give, no life to give, no care. Education is a company, the seed builds trust in the economy. It's lost, no gun, no God above, believe me. When vacation is just an illusion, our civilization is a simulation. Now here's a secret for your ears. Social media knows all your fears. It's clear to me they keep you scared of your peers. Now who's profiting from their lies? They're creeping up between your eyes, and they will be forever in plain sight. Edification is just an illusion. Our civilization is a simulation run by corporation for dehumanization. It's time for cultivation. Silver spoon, fat cat, rat pack, zippy social bureaucrat. Call me what you will, but I still control the way you think. Lazy mooch, begging bomb, Las Vegas streets, got the 1% is rare. And beware, the rest of us are on the brink. Use your power to gain dead trees by the forest with the greenest leaves. Burn it all to the ground, burn the birds and the bees, while the factory of kids manufacture green. Use your power to gain dead trees by the forest with the greenest first person